A poor woman went to the hospital, holding her baby tight against her chest. The child was burning with fever, eyes half shut, breathing slowly. She had walked on foot from the village, with nothing but hope, and her trembling baby girl tied on her back. When she reached the hospital, she stood quietly in line, barefoot, clothes soaked from last night's rain. When it was her turn, she stepped forward and placed the baby on the nurse's table. The baby let out a weak cry and then fell silent. The nurse looked concerned. She examined the child quickly, checked her temperature, and shook her head. "This child is very sick. She needs medicine immediately." The woman leaned in and asked, "Please, what do I need?" "You need $3, the nurse said. "Without that, we can't begin treatment." She lowered her eyes. Her voice broke as she spoke. "I don't have money. Please, I'll do anything. I'll clean the floors, I'll fetch water. Just don't let my baby die." The nurse looked away. "I'm sorry. That's not how we do things." She wrapped her baby again, wiped her eyes, and stepped outside. She stood by the roadside, unsure of what to do next. The baby whimpered in her arms, her small face pale and her lips dry. She stretched out her arm, trying to stop any car, any motorbike, anyone. "Please help me. I just need $3 to save my baby." But no one stopped. A car drove past, splashing dirty water on her legs. Another one drove past with music so loud they couldn't hear her cry. A man on a motorbike looked at her with disgust and muttered, "Always the same story, begging." She stood there for hours, feet swollen, her dress soaked, her eyes begging more than her voice ever could. Her child's body got heavier, not from weight but from weakness. Still, she didn't give up. One woman sitting inside a taxi saw her. She saw the child. She saw the pain. She saw something that didn't look like begging. It looked like a soul breaking. She tried to tell the taxi driver to stop, but the driver didn't listen. "We're going to the park," he said. "I can't stop now." When they reached, the woman got out, boarded another taxi, and returned immediately. But the mother was no longer there. The spot was empty. She started walking up and down the street, asking strangers, "Did you see a woman carrying a baby? She was standing here." One man shrugged. "She's probably a mad woman." Another said, "Those kinds always disappear." But she kept searching. Her shoes filled with water. Her back began to hurt, but her heart wouldn't rest. Something inside her refused to let it go. Meanwhile, the mother had moved to another corner. The rain had started again. Cold drops soaked through her thin shawl. The baby let out soft, fading cries. She begged again. "Please, just $3. But all she got were harsh words. "Go find a job!" someone shouted. Another person walked by and shook his head. "These ones just fake stories." She turned and walked to a garbage pile nearby, picked up some half-eaten food, wiped it gently, and gave it to the baby. The food was cold, dirty, but the baby chewed slowly, then rested her head against her chest. She sat on a stone beside the garbage. She looked at the sky and spoke softly. "God, are you watching? Don't let my child die. I don't care if I live, but don't take her. Please, Lord. Just this once." She rocked the baby and whispered, "Don't sleep yet. I'm still trying. Mummy's still trying." Then a shadow appeared in front of her. The woman who had seen her earlier was standing there. She looked at the poor mother. She almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was wet and matted, her eyes swollen, her lips cracked. "Are you the one I saw earlier?" she asked. The mother looked up slowly. "You came back?" "Yes," the woman said. "I've been looking for you. Come with me." They walked quietly together to a small roadside food stall. The woman bought porridge and some warm food. She watched the mother eat slowly, watched her feed the baby who had almost no energy left. "How long since you last ate?" she asked. 3 days. But the hunger isn't the problem. My baby, she needs treatment. They said $3. "Come with me," the woman said. "We're going back to the hospital." At the hospital, she handed the nurse the money. They admitted the baby quickly, put her on a bed, gave her medicine, gave her life. The mother sat next to the bed, holding the baby's little hand. The doctor told them, "You came just in time. Another few hours, she wouldn't have made it." The woman stayed by her side. She visited every morning. She brought food, clothes, water. The mother would cry sometimes while holding her baby. She whispered, "You saved her. You don't know what you've done." After 3 days, they left the hospital. The kind woman didn't let her return to the street. She took her to her small one-room house. It wasn't big, but it was dry. It was safe. It had a door that locked and a roof that didn't leak. Every evening the mother sat on the floor holding her baby. She whispered, "God didn't forget us. He sent someone." The woman shared whatever little she had. She didn't have a job that paid much. She didn't have savings, but she gave from her heart. One day, the mother turned to her and said, "You've done what no one else ever did. Even my own blood didn't stand for me, but you did. You're not just kind, you're love." And the baby grew stronger. Day by day, she smiled more. She laughed. She started crawling, then walking. The two women became like sisters. One gave birth to life, the other helped it survive, and heaven was watching. Time passed. It had been almost 3 years since that rainy day when a mother had stood by the roadside with a dying baby. 3 years since a stranger with nothing much but a full heart had reached out with love. In those years, the two women had become inseparable. They cooked together, shared whatever little they had, and raised the baby together. They laughed, cried, encouraged one another, and prayed through their challenges. The baby, now a beautiful little girl with big eyes and a bright smile, ran around the small house freely. She had survived the sickness. She had survived the hunger. She had survived rejection. And now she lived. One morning, the woman who had once saved the baby woke up feeling weak. At first, she thought it was the usual stress from work. But as days passed, the pain in her stomach grew worse. Her appetite disappeared. She began sweating in her sleep and started losing weight quickly. She didn't say anything at first. She didn't want to worry the other woman or disturb the peace in their home. But it became too much to hide. One night, the pain was unbearable. She leaned against the wall, groaning quietly. The mother of the baby woke up and rushed to her side. "What is it? What's wrong?" she asked. She shook her head. "It's nothing. Just something small. Maybe it's the food." But she knew it wasn't. The next morning, they went to the hospital. The doctor examined her, took tests, and sat them down. "You have a serious infection. We must operate immediately." Her heart dropped. She looked at the doctor in silence. "How much does it cost?" The doctor paused. $150. She closed her eyes. That was more money than she had ever seen at once in her life. She looked at the other woman sitting beside her and shook her head. "I don't have it," she whispered. She was the one who once gave $3 to save a life. But now, when she needed help, no one was there to offer the same. That night, she sat quietly in bed. Her breathing had become shallow. She tried not to groan, tried not to cry, but pain was covering her like a blanket. "I'm going to die," she whispered to herself. "I'm going to die poor and no one will remember me." But someone remembered her. The woman whose baby she saved now stood beside her, tears in her eyes. "You're not going to die," she said firmly. "But where will we get the money?" "I'll go back to my village. I'll ask everyone. I don't care how long it takes. I'll knock every door. If they can give just $1, we can gather enough. You didn't let my child die. I won't let you die either." She packed a small bag and left for the village. She visited homes, sat on doorsteps, cried as she told the story. "This woman saved my baby. Now she is sick. She needs an operation. Please help me." Some listened, some didn't. Some promised to help but never showed up again. Days passed. She tried churches, groups, friends, anyone. But the money wasn't coming. She only managed to raise $28. It wasn't enough. She returned to the city, holding the baby's hand tightly. Her heart was heavy. Said, We will talk. They carried her to the hospital on a boda. The baby held the kind woman's hand tightly the whole way. When they reached, the doctor looked at her and said, "We will operate. Don't worry about the money." She tried to protest, "But we haven't paid." The doctor smiled gently. "Let's first save your life." The operation was done. It was painful, but it was successful. After 3 days in the hospital, she began to sit up. After a week, she started walking slowly. Life was coming back, but her mind was now worried about the debt. How will I pay back the hospital? What if they take me to jail? I don't want trouble. One day, she was discharged and sent home to continue healing, but inside she was anxious. Weeks later, she received a phone call from the hospital. "The doctor wants to see you." Her heart skipped a beat. She was sure the bill had come. She told the other woman, "It's time. They want their money." She left the baby behind and went to the hospital, her feet dragging, her hands shaking. When she entered the office, the doctor stood up and smiled. "Please sit." She sat quietly, staring at the floor. "Are you feeling better now?" he asked. She nodded. "Can you now work and move around?" "I'm trying. I'm just worried about the bill." He leaned forward. "You don't need to worry," he said gently. "But I haven't paid anything." "You don't need to," the doctor said. "Someone paid for you." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "The woman you helped, the one whose baby you saved. She told me everything 3 years ago. That woman is my sister." She froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "She told me how you helped her, how you stood in the rain, how you fed her, how you paid $3 when she had nothing. She said you were a stranger, but you became a savior. She told me to always remember you, to never forget what you did." He smiled and added, "When I saw you walk in that day, I recognized you. You looked different, weak and sick. But I knew. You were the one." Tears fell from her eyes like rain. "You mean, all this time?" "Yes. I operated you without telling you, because I wanted to honor the love you showed my sister. You didn't just save a baby. You changed our lives." She placed both hands on her face and sobbed. "I thought I was alone. I thought no one saw me." "We saw you," the doctor said. "God saw you." She cried like a child. Not from pain, but from the flood of love she never expected. When she returned home, the woman ran to hug her, crying too. "You loved me when I was nothing," the mother said. "Now I loved you back. This world doesn't forget people like you." The baby ran to her too, now walking and talking. She hugged her tightly and whispered, "Auntie, you came back." That night, they all sat together and ate in peace. The kind woman looked around the room, and for the first time in a long time she felt rich, not in money, but in love. They were still poor in the world's eyes, still living in a small house, still sharing clothes and food. But inside, they had more than gold. They had each other. They had love. They had God. And nothing was more powerful than that. She stood at the gate of the hospital, this time not as a patient, not as a beggar, not as a desperate mother, but as a young woman in a white coat, holding a file in her hands and a stethoscope around her neck. Tears filled her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She walked slowly past the reception, through the corridors where her story had once been written, first with pain, then with hope, and now with victory. Nurses greeted her, some recognizing her smile from years ago. Others just nodded, unaware that the very ground she was walking on had once witnessed a miracle. Her own life saved by a stranger's kindness. This was the little girl who once lay sick in her mother's arms. Now she was here to serve. She had made it through school. Not easily, not without struggles. There were days she almost dropped out. Times she studied on an empty stomach. Days when she couldn't afford books. Nights she cried in silence, wondering if she would ever reach her dream. But every time she wanted to quit, she remembered. She remembered the rain. She remembered her mother begging with a dying baby. She remembered the woman who gave $3 and saved them both. She remembered her auntie's face, pale on that hospital bed, and how God didn't let her die. She remembered everything, and those memories became fuel. Now, after years of studying, working part-time, applying for scholarships, and walking long distances to attend classes. She stood as a newly posted intern at the very hospital where her journey began. She looked for the doctor who had once operated on her auntie. He was older now, but his face still had the same calmness, the same kindness. "Do you remember me?" she asked quietly. He looked up, paused, then smiled. "You're the little one, the sick baby." "Yes," she said, tears filling her voice. "And now I'm here to help others, like you helped us." He stood up slowly and hugged her. "You have no idea what this means to me," he whispered. They talked for some time. He welcomed her to the team. He promised to guide her. And deep inside, he knew this was a full circle. The seed of kindness he once watered had grown into a healer. That evening, she went back home to the small house where her journey began. The house wasn't fancy. The door still creaked a little. The chairs were old. But the love inside those walls had only grown stronger. She found her mother in the kitchen, cooking cassava. Her auntie was seated outside, cleaning vegetables. "Mummy, auntie," she called, smiling. They looked up and saw her wearing her coat. Their eyes swelled with tears. "I went to the hospital today," she said. "I started." Her mother dropped the spoon. Her auntie covered her mouth. They didn't say anything. They just walked to her, held her hands, and cried. "You've made us proud," her auntie whispered. "God has done it." The three of them sat together, talking about how far they had come. The mother remembered the first time she held her baby, thinking she would die. The auntie remembered the smell of the hospital room when she thought it was her final breath. The daughter remembered the lessons of love, the sacrifices, the hunger, the laughter, the tears. That night they cooked together, just like old times. Only this time, they didn't just cook with hope. They cooked with victory. Time moved on. The young woman grew in her profession. She began to volunteer in remote areas, treating children for free. She gave out medicine from her salary. She helped mothers who looked just like hers once did, poor, scared, but full of love for their children. Whenever people asked her why she worked so hard, why she helped so much, she told them one thing: "Because someone once helped me when I was nothing." She started a small community group with the help of her church, a place where poor mothers could come for health advice, support, and encouragement. She named it the Woman in the Rain Foundation. People would come, sit under a tree, and listen as she shared her story. One day, during a gathering, she stood in front of over 50 women. She pointed at her auntie who was sitting on a bench under the mango tree. "That woman right there," she said with emotion in her voice. "She is not my blood, but she gave me life." When everyone passed by, she stopped. When others mocked, she knelt down in the rain and lifted us up. The women clapped. Some cried. Her auntie smiled quietly, her eyes full of tears. "If she hadn't helped us," the young woman continued, "I wouldn't be here. Maybe I would have died. But today, I'm here to remind you, never underestimate what your love can do." The women nodded. Some hugged each other. Some prayed silently, and some went home and gave their neighbors food that same evening. Later, she was invited to speak at conferences. Her story began to spread, not because it was famous, but because it was true. People listened not because of how beautiful she spoke, but because of how deeply she felt every word. She always said one line at the end of every speech: "You might not have money, but if you have a heart, then you have enough to change someone's world." That line began to live in people's hearts. One night, while lying on her bed, she turned to her mother. "Mummy, do you ever think about that day by the road?" Her mother sighed. "Every day I remember the rain. I remember how I almost gave up." "But you didn't." "No, because I had you." Then she turned to her auntie. "And you?" "I remember your small body shaking in my arms when I first held you. I remember thinking, if God sent me back here, there must be a reason. And now I know He did," she said, "because that baby became a blessing." They all smiled. The room was quiet again, but their hearts were loud, with gratitude, with love, with unshakable faith. One afternoon, many years later, She was walking home when a woman by the roadside called her. "Doctor, doctor, help me!" She rushed to her and saw a small child on the ground, sweating and coughing. She knelt down quickly, checked the child's pulse, and began giving first aid. The woman kept crying. "I don't have money, please help me." She looked at the woman and said gently, "It's okay. I once stood where you are. Let me help you." She took the child to the hospital, paid for the treatment, and waited there until the baby was stable. When the mother came running with tears in her eyes, she asked, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." She smiled and said, "You don't need to know someone to love them." Then she turned to walk away, and as she walked, she looked up to heaven and whispered, "That's for you, Auntie. That's for you, Mummy." She kept walking. The rain started falling softly. She didn't run from it. She let it touch her skin. Because this time the rain wasn't pain. It was a reminder of where she came from and how far love had brought her. Final reflections. No seed of kindness is ever wasted. It may take years to grow, but when it does, it becomes a tree of life. The $3 that saved a baby grew into a doctor who saved many. True family is not always blood. Sometimes the people who change your life the most are strangers who choose to love you in your darkest hour. That love builds something greater than names or traditions. It builds destiny. God remembers everything. Every tear, every act of compassion, every small sacrifice. It is recorded in heaven, and one day it returns. Not just as a reward, but as a testimony. Proverbs 11:25. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Ecclesiastes 11:1. Cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it again. Isaiah 50:10-11. If you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness. Let this story be more than words. Let it remind you to stop when you see someone in the rain, to love even when it's inconvenient, to give even when you don't have much. Because love is never wasted. It always finds its way back. And when it does, it builds legacies. May your love be someone's miracle.